Scribble notes when I wrote these quotes. If I offend, pardon me.
What's up, everybody? This is your boy back again. It's Jamil. I wanted to give you this episode because I feel like this is one that's much needed, really needed. So when I first started my journey for self-publishing, I looked at a lot of channels, looked at a lot of things. I was like, yo, how much does self-publishing really cost? Like, can I publish this book for the low? Like, how can I get this done? And I found a lot of answers. Some people were giving numbers like $3,000. I remember one person, they had me budgeting like $4,000. And I was like, well, $4,000 to self-publish a book? Like, this is craziness. So today I wanted to give you kind of an insight as to what I do for self-publishing and how it's changed and how it's continuing to evolve as I've learned more and more about the self-publishing process. And I think my approach is a little different than others because I've kind of transitioned my first time around. I'll give you this background. First time around, I ran a GoFundMe campaign and it was awesome. It worked really well, raised like almost $2,000. And I was like, this is going to be more than enough money to fund my entire self-publishing journey. And it was. And I realized and I learned from there that self-publishing isn't really that expensive if you're doing all the right things. You can make it definitely a process that costs less than $1,000. And I want to outline how you can self-publish a book in less than $1,000. And even $1,000 is kind of pushing it. So I'll talk about some areas and places where you can kind of cut back and save some money so you can get that book that you've always wanted out into the universe. Let's begin. Before we start, though, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Comment something that you're worried about as far as the self-publishing process, cost-wise. Like, what are you worried about cost-wise, about affording? And what are some of those things that you need answered that people have said that kind of contradict other things you've heard? Definitely comment those things below. But let's get started. Number one, ISBN numbers. So for me, ISBN numbers are the freaking numbers that go on the back of the book. They basically assign a code to your book so that anytime a book is printed, they know that that's like your digital like ID number, basically. And you have to get one for ebook, you have to get one for a paperback, you have to get a separate one for a hardcover, audiobook. They all have to have a separate ISBN number. What I've learned is ISBN numbers can be super freaking expensive. Best thing that I did, and this is like you don't have to do it this way, but it's kind of cost effective if you plan on publishing more than one book. I bought 10 ISBN numbers. I believe the price was $295, and I got them through Bowker. Bowker is like the most legitimate place to get ISBNs. You can go other places. You could try it. Like, don't get me wrong. You do anything you want. But the other places might be kind of sketchy. You might not actually get an ISBN number. With ISBN numbers as well, you could go the Amazon KDP route and get them to give you a free number. They can give you one for free. It's just that you then can't list your book in other places outside of their platform. So you have to make that kind of decision. Really, it's up to you, but you can either do the free route, go Amazon KDP, and they'll give you an ISBN number, and then you won't have to worry about that piece nearly as much. Or you can have full ownership over it by buying your own ISBNs through Bowker. I got 10 of them for $295. A ton of money, but it's 10 of them. To buy one of them was like $50 or something. So it was like an outrageous price. It might have been $100 to buy one of them. It was a wild price. So I just ended up buying 10. So that's up to you. You could feel like it's one of those things that's kind of unavoidable depending on what your strategy is. But if you're Amazon strategy, you're going to go Amazon all the way and you want to make this as cheap of a process, ISBN, just let Amazon give you one and you'll be all set. So number two, the next biggest expense that I really experienced was formatting, right? Except I didn't experience a formatting expense because what I did to publish my paperback, I went online and just learned how to use Microsoft Word correctly. You can do all of the formatting for your book by yourself. You don't need to pay for someone to do the formatting for your paperback book. You can do that by yourself. It's easy to learn. It takes about 30 minutes to an hour, but you'll save a ton of money. And the best piece is once you format your book one time, you will always know how to format future books. And then you'll save money like in perpetuity, basically. So I'd say spend some time, learn how to format it yourself. It'll make all the difference in the world. Now, some of y'all are probably asking about ebook. Like ebook, I don't know how to do this ebook. Me either. I don't. So I went to Fiverr. On Fiverr, there's a lot of different people who are formatting ebooks for really cheap, anywhere from like 10 to 15, maybe $20. You can get an entire ebook formatted. I got my ebook formatted for $15. And then I went back to the same person the second time and got it done again for $15. What I will say is do not get your book formatted from an outsider until you have proofread it. Until you have a professional proofread and an edit, don't get your book formatted because they'll charge extra money every time they have to go back into the document. So you'll save a little bit of time and a little bit of money by just waiting till the last possible moment to pay for formatting. And formatting doesn't have to be expensive if you learn how to do it yourself. And it's more than there's some like really clean walkthroughs on just how to set up a book and how to format a book. And I think that all you have to do is just go to one of those, watch it, run through the whole thing, start to finish, and you'll see your manuscript like literally become a book right in front of your eyes, and it'll save you tons of free. Number 3 is marketing. So marketing is a variable expense. What by variable, I just mean like your marketing expense versus mine versus someone else's might be different. For my first book, my marketing expense was pretty high because I had run the GoFundMe campaign, I had all this leftover money. So I was doing a bunch of ads and I was also testing. So what I would say about marketing, a ton of money is going to go into testing ads, testing like keywords and stuff like that. All things that are very much like specific, but in terms of marketing, you can do a lot of marketing that is inexpensive to like no cost at all. One, getting a social media account, growing a following, getting on podcasts is free. You can just like reach out and try to do that. Some of the other things like ARC readers and reaching out to people for reviews, all of those things can be free to an extent if you can just manage. So for me, I set a budget around $150 for marketing, and it ended up working out pretty well. But you don't have to put nearly as much money in because reaching out to bookstores is free and doing a whole bunch of other stuff is free. I'll talk a little bit about like proof copies and author copies of books in a second because those things do cost money. So when we talk about number 4, we're talking about proof copies, author copies, art copies. So getting your book early. So once your book is near finished, right? When you had the formatting finished, when you've done all those things, you're going to want to get a proof copy of the book from Amazon or whoever you go through, or whatever distributor, Barnes and Nobles, Ingram Sparks, whoever you use, you're going to want to get a proof copy. Those proof copies typically cost money. So some stores, depending on the size of your book, can charge $5 a book, $10 a book, whatever it is. And then you pay for shipping. So for me, what ended up happening is I've spent on my second book, I ended up spending close to about $20-$30 on proof copies. That was just to make sure the formatting was correct and that everything that I wanted in the book printed correctly. Once it did, I didn't spend any more money on proof copies, partly because I didn't want to continue to run up that expense because those copies cost money and they cost a lot of time because you have to wait until they're printed at the factory, then shipped to you. So you have to there's a lot of waiting time. So you don't want to spend too much money on proofs, even though proofs are super exciting to open up and unboxing is super exciting every single time. So you'll definitely want to experience it. Just don't go overboard with buying too many because now I have a ton of proof copies that I've like literally nothing to do with. But what I will say is when it comes to author copies of books, when it comes to art copies, once your book is done, you can order author copies and they'll be at whatever the price of production of the book is. So if the book costs $4.71, then that's how much you pay for it as the author. And then you can take that, and obviously the shipping gets added on there. Amazon will ship it to your house, or Barnes and Nobles, whoever, they'll ship it to your house. You'll get it, and then you'll have however many copies you ordered. Now, for me, I stay at the 15 copies being the maximum. So that puts me right around $60 or so as far as how much I spend on proof copies or author copies and art copies. That's because not everyone that you reach out to do an advanced reader copy of the book. So all the advanced readers, the people that you might want to review your book early, not all of them are going to want the physical book. It's really nice to send physical books, but not everyone's going to want that. So you have to just recognize that some people are going to want the ebook because it's easier and that's free for you to just send them the file. But for the physical copies, you want to print a few so you can have those on hand. They're also really good in case you want to do some signed copies and be able to sell those too. But you don't need too many physical books on hand because you're probably not going to sell or use all those physical books like you think you might. If that makes sense. The next expense that I ended up having was maps and illustrations. So I'm a fantasy writer. So I wanted to put a map in the book. The map for my book ended up costing close to $50. So that ended up being like a pretty fair expense at the end of the day. It was costly, but it was fair. And the illustrations, every illustration for my character arts costed me $30. Now, you don't have to get character arts. I would say that most people don't need it unless you have extra expendable money or money that you can just use. Character arts are not necessary. So don't feel like you have to get a character art or your story doesn't matter. Like, no, you can pick and choose what you want to get. I'm selling my character arts online, or I plan on selling them online as stickers. So I got the commercial use rights and all this other stuff, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to get a map if you don't want to. I suggest getting a map. The $50 expense, you pay it one time and then you have a map that you can use in all your stories if it's connected. It just makes a difference to the reader sometimes. So consider that. It's a little bit of a costly thing, but it's something that you can do that doesn't take up too much of your fun. The next thing I would say is finding a place to publish your book. So I decided not to use Ingram Sparks. Ingram Sparks charges you $50 to upload a paperback and an ebook. I decided to go with Amazon and Barnes & Noble. They're both free, so you can just make an account, you can upload your book, and they'll publish them to their sites, and it's free. That's more than enough for me. That's all I needed, and now they both offer hardcover as well. So in reality, you really don't need to even think about going to Ingram Sparks unless you want to go wide. So Ingram Sparks allows you to sell your book everywhere. Every bookstore can get it. Every library can get it. It's like this very wide network. I just don't care. Like, it's at the end of the day, I'm like, Amazon's perfectly fine. Barnes & Noble's perfectly fine. Like, those are great. I've been making sales on those and I don't feel any regret. So you don't have to either. You can just do what you want to do with your paperbacks, do what you want to do with your ebook. The next big cost, and I know everyone's waiting, like, wait, you haven't talked about editing yet. Editing is a huge cost. So you have to be very strategic about editing. And how I like to do it and what I think works fairly well in order to save you some money, because I'm all about saving money. I want to publish this book for under $1,000, and we're already like very much climbing price wise with all of these different categories. We're already like close to that $500 mark. So what I do for editing is I'll do my beta readers first. I'm a self-published author. This is about self-publishing. I'll use beta readers first. So after I read and finish my first draft, I'll go through it again with my second draft edits. My wife's an English teacher. Shout out to Caitlin. She'll read each chapter and edit as I'm writing. So as I'm writing my first draft, she reads and edits the chapters, partly because she wants to read the story, but also in helping me edit. So she'll edit, and then I'll take that draft and I'll edit that one again. Then after that edit, I'll have Caitlin go through it one more time with a full read. She'll edit, and we'll send it over to the beta readers. So I find that beta readers are a huge piece of my process. It's finding people that really want to enjoy your story, people who are of different backgrounds, different ideas, different like thought processes, all taking in your story. What I ask my beta readers to do is kind of give me feedback on the story for each chapter. Some people do like big book runs. I do a chapter by chapter feedback. The reason is because it helps with some of the editing process. Because they're reading every chapter, they're getting a more clear, and they're giving feedback on every chapter. They're giving a more concise detailed response to what's going wrong, what's working, what's not working in each chapter. And when they're giving that much critique, and I'm getting 4, 5, 6 people sometimes beta reading and giving feedback on every single chapter, you're getting a pretty well-rounded view about what developmental edits you need to make and what are some changes you should consider, because you're getting so much feedback. So as I go through that process, because it saves me money, I also feel like I have a strong understanding of like storytelling and the way stories develop. So I don't feel like I have to pay for a developmental editor. It's great if you feel like you should, if you have to, that's great. But I don't feel like I should or I need to. So I don't. I use my beta readers as that, and I get a lot of feedback. It takes about 2 months for my beta readers to even get through the story. And that's just a testament to how much kind of work I ask them to do so that I don't have to go find a developmental editor. On the flip side, once the beta reading's done and I apply their feedback, I go get a real editor. So I work with an editor who's awesome, and she will go through the story and give me feedback. And I pay her about $300 to do it all. Partly because I know her, she's a friend. So I definitely say leverage your friendships. If you know someone who graduated with an English degree and has went into writing, and or someone who's like really into the academic side of things, those are really good people as far as like getting them to help you with editing and going back and giving feedback and looking at and all the semantics of writing. Those are really good people to go to. And then pay them, because sometimes they'll take way less than someone else. A lot of people charge based off of length of story, per word. Some people charge per word. I have a hard time with that. I like to just do a flat rate, partly because I'm just one of those people who is like, you're gonna edit, like just do the editing. Like it's cool with me. I understand the longer the book, the more time it takes. But at the same time, like some people are charging like $2,000 to edit your book. I have a hard time of thinking that someone's going to be like, oh, here's $2,000 worth of my edits and my suggestions on how you should write better. Because at the end of the day, it's still going to be your writing that goes down on the paper, not their edits. Their edits are just suggestions about how they think the story could be told. It's not necessarily how the story has to be told. And I've gotten overwhelmingly positive reviews without necessarily taking all of this expensive edit feedback. So I definitely would say consider that just as you're doing anything. It's art, so it's subjective. And editing, as long as someone's getting all of the mistakes and all of the errors and all of the little things that you really need to address, that's all you're really looking for. You're not looking for someone to rewrite your book. That's not what we're doing here at self-publishing. But next, in the final piece, and I think this is a really big one, is your cover. So the next place I spend a lot of money is on covers. I drop about $300 per cover with my graphic designer. He's awesome. He's an amazing one. I'd say find someone who just really does good work in general. You don't need to find someone who just does covers. You can find someone who does great graphic design work, period. The reason why I say that is because a good graphic designer has a good eye for what works graphically on a piece of media. And the one I found, he does a ton of work in other places, but he is really, really skilled at book covers. I pay him $300. He goes through his process. And the other piece that I'd say is like, give ideas. Don't be afraid to say what you don't like, because they're at the end of the day, it's a service for you. But also just give them some creative freedom to kind of create and do what they do best. If you're not a graphic designer, then let that person do the job that you're paying them to do. As an author, we don't always have the best eye for what graphics should look like. And definitely don't. I'm just gonna say, don't do it yourself. Unless you're a graphic designer, don't do your own cover. Like, let someone else do it. Pay someone else. And that's how I keep my books like underneath $1,000 to publish. I just let people who need to get paid, and everywhere else I try to just do myself. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy, but it's more than possible. And I think as you're going through your process, you should consider that too, that you can do your entire process without paying or breaking the bank. When it comes to proofreading at the very end, before you go format the book and this and that, for proofreads, like find as many people to read your book as possible and ask them to tell you when you make mistakes. And that's literally the best feedback you can get. I'll do that with my beta readers. I'll be like, hey, if you find any mistakes, just say them and say what page and what paragraph, and I'll fix it. Because your beta readers will be reading the book and they'll find things that you didn't see and things that your editor doesn't see. So you'll just have to just go through it and understand. One person's eyes are never going to be enough. One proofreader that you pay is not going to find all the mistakes. It's going to be a lot of people who have to find all the mistakes, and you still might let mistakes slip through. So recognize that. And I think that's just the way. That's how you publish a book under $1,000. Like if anyone tells you you have to do all this extra stuff, no, you don't. You really don't. Don't do all the extra stuff. Not unless you have the funds to do more. If you can't do more, that's fine. The places to not skip out on are the editing and the cover. Those are the two places where you should pay no matter what. Like I would say almost don't even consider publishing the book unless you get a really good cover and unless you get some editing from a professional. Besides those two areas, in the editing you're even looking for is just general line edits, things that you can control. Like developmental edits, that's great if you have the money for it, but I just say line edits. Just go through my book, make sure I don't have any weird sentences, make sure I don't have any typos, and that's really it. And everywhere else, take a step back on, and you'll save yourself so much money. You'll still publish that book. You'll still be an Amazon bestseller, because all of those things don't really come with all these other pieces. Like marketing, that's another area where you can skip some money out if you don't have it, but it's another area to put money in if you do. And everywhere else, just relax, do some things on your own, figure out your way, get your book published. I believe in you. I know you can do it. And hopefully this information was helpful to anyone that's wondering, because so many people don't just tell you what it is. And I just think this is what it is. Like, you don't have to spend all this money on publishing your book. And if this information helped, then please feel free to subscribe, like this video, share it with your friends so that they can get some information about how to self-publish themselves, because it's not that hard. It's not that difficult. It's not that scary. And thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And you already know what it is. Peace out.
Scribble notes when I wrote these quotes. If I offend, pardon me, there's more of me to grow. Creative in my process, enjoy the show. The will is different when you recognize the different strokes. Different folks, same goals, we all want the most. So when we reach the top, we can enjoy the toast. The type of bread we get is fresh about the bakery. Told them don't play with me, with or without a degree. Don't question my intensity, bravery. Similar to agencies that want to see you fold. So just pray for me. Pray for me. Einstein with my energy.